got you. Welcome to the Rebel Collective, the podcast that dives deep down the rabbit hole of the esoteric, the occult, and all that lies beyond. This podcast is your unfiltered gateway to groundbreaking theories, proofs, and sensitive information, delivering a no-holds-barred approach that slaps you in the face with its thought-provoking themes, leaving you questioning reality. These sensitive subjects gets free thinkers, rebels, and innovators banned for speaking the truth. We are those rebels, and we will no longer be restrained. Today is December 26, 2023, and it's our final show of the year. Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode. I'm your host, Drago Reid.
And I'm your co-host, Laura Eisenhower. Hello, Drago. Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody. And wow, Jay Weidner, we have such an amazing guest with us today. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. In this holiday season, too. So everybody, I know a lot of you are familiar with him, but let me tell you about Jay. Jay Weidner is a seasoned researcher and author and filmmaker with a passion for unraveling the profound mysteries that shape our understanding of reality. As the leading figure at Gaia, a streaming platform that delves into the realms of spirituality, consciousness, and the unexplained, Jay has become a trusted voice in the field. With a rich background in both writing and filmmaking, Jay has authored several books and directed thought-provoking documentaries that explore the intersections of science, spirituality, and ancient wisdom. His works delve into topics such as alchemy, secret societies, and the hidden truths that lie beneath the surface of our collective consciousness. As a key contributor to Gaia, Jay Weidner plays a pivotal role in curating content that invites audiences to question, explore, and expand their understanding of the world. His insights into consciousness, metaphysics, and the esoteric provide a unique lens through which viewers can engage with the deeper aspects of their own existence. So, wow, we got so much to ask you today, Jay. And Drago, I know you've got some questions you want to start off with, so go for it.
All right, Jay, so today's a special day. Today's our 13th episode of the Rebel Collective podcast. And speaking of symbolism and the number 13, I thought there's no one else I'd want to jump into the occult with other than the authority on the hermetic and the alchemical traditions according to Wired magazine. I followed you for a long time. I've seen a ton of your lectures. I seen you at Stairway to the Stars. That show was amazing. Your talk was awesome. Standing room only. I was in the front. I had some good questions for you. Really wish your talk was longer, man. But wow.
Yeah, I should have gone on longer. I guess I didn't know that there's going to be that many people. I thought I was going to have like 10 people. So I didn't know I was going to sell out.
Yeah, and then they kept trying to kick you off. You're like, well, we got a lot of questions to go, and everyone's like, we'll stay, so it's all good, man.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting because since then I've noticed that several of the people that were at the Disclosure Fest are now tackling the issue that I was talking about. So I'm kind of grateful because I took that issue of the plasma universe and now other people are coming onto it. And I believe that that is the science of the future and that we have created a very serious problem for ourselves in that 99% of the universe is plasma, but our physics only looks at 1% of the universe. So if we can start looking at the other 99%, I think we'll start figuring out where paranormal activity comes from and possible communication with other intelligences and that kind of thing. So I think we're moving towards that. As I showed in the lecture, we are now moving out of the Kali Yuga. My book, A Monument to the End of Time and Mysteries of the Great Cross of Henday, describe how we oscillate. The solar system oscillates as it sits at the edge of the galactic plane. And when we go behind the star matter and the sludge of the galactic plane, we lose all of the etheric energy that's coming from the center of the galaxy. For a temporary period while we go behind that plane, we lose that energy. That's the Kali Yuga. As we pass behind that, and then right now we're creeping out the top of it to oscillate back down. And again, you can see how it goes. So we're coming out of the Kali Yuga into the Dwapara Yuga, and then we're going to be going into the Silver Age, and then the Golden Age, and then the Silver Age, and then the Dwapara Yuga, and then back into the Kali Yuga, then out to the Dwapara, then the Silver Age. And you can see how it goes up and down through this system. And we're now coming out of that darkness, and the sun that used to be yellow is now white because it's getting more energy, and things are about to improve dramatically for the human race. I believe that we are not only going to come into contact with the plasma beings and see them, but we're going to come into contact with higher intelligences that have been waiting for us to come out of the Kali Yuga, because it was useless to communicate with us while we were in the Kali Yuga, because we were just so spiritually stupefied by being in the darkness that we were pretty much useless. And you think about the last 2,000 years, say my ancestors from Ireland or Germany, they would go a whole lifetime and never leave their village. They knew the same 28 people from the time they were born till the time they died. They never traveled. They never had access to books or very many books. So they were lost in this shrouded world that we don't live in anymore. And we have instant access to everything at our fingertips. We can buy anything we want now on Amazon online, anything, any exotic thing we want. Whereas just even 10, 15 years ago, it was a journey to go out and buy something. You had to go to stores, you had to go through all this rigmarole, and now all that's changing, and a lot of it's not for the good. But what I'm saying is that the powers that be know this. The cross of Hende, which marks this oscillation, was built by the elites. And they know this, and they know that we're now coming out of the darkness, and they can see that the sun is turning white again, and they know it. And so what they're doing is they're doing everything they can to hold us down right now, because what is about to happen cannot be stopped. It's just like when you go into puberty, or you go into adulthood, or you turn 50 and your hair turns white. There's nothing that you can do about time. Time dictates itself. And when the time changes, we change, and the powers that be can do all the things that they want to do to keep everything back in the old way that it was going, which is basically corruption, war, bribery, horrifying child things going on and all that. Or we wake up and we say, oh my God, we're living on a slave planet with invisible slave masters, and they're using us to create secretions that allow them to live a long time. And I don't want to get any more than that, but that is basically what we're waking up to. And that is a good thing. And we're waking up to the fact that we have been slaves for a long time, but now that the Kali Yuga is ending, we can now claim our liberation, which is scaring the hell out of the powers that be, but we are going to find true happiness in this endeavor that we're about to go through. So the Kali Yuga is now drifting away. The darkness is starting to go away. We're in the worst hangover that you'll ever be in the whole Yuga cycle. The end of the Kali Yuga, it's 2,000 years of war, of attrition, of slavery, of all these dark things. And now we're coming out of it, but we still have the hangover. And so every day the hangover gets less and less, but we still have it. And that hangover is causing us great duress. And we now have to realize that we're not living in those old times anymore. And all of the things that we all did to each other in those times, in those desperate moments of darkness, we got to get over it, and we got to start moving forward here. And that's my message from here on out, is that things are just going to get better and better and better. It may not look like it right away, but things are getting better. I don't care what anybody says. I'm old enough to know how bad things were just, 50, 60 years ago, and the starvation and the higher infant mortality rates that were going on, and all of that's disappearing. And we're going through a rough time now because they put us through that horrible event of 2020 and 2021. But now we're finally getting over that too. And we're much more wiser now than we were then. And they're not going to be able to fool us anymore. And I think they know that. And so I come with a great message that we are moving into a new time period. If you are managed to stay healthy and avoid the toxins of the world, you'll have a really good life in the next few years.
Wow. Excellent.
That's kind of what the Hopi Indians predicted in the end. They say that everybody who went inside, they got into spirituality, did all the internal work and meditated, they would be blissful in the end, and they would look around amongst all the fire and chaos and they wouldn't be affected because they knew that that wasn't a part of their scenario, and everybody else would go insane. It would, the world would just burn. And like, I see the world burning around me, and for the first time in my life, I don't connect to it anymore. I understand it's happening, but I just don't connect with it anymore. And we see this in the rise and falls of all ancient civilizations, Rome, everything, the Anunnaki, everything rose and fall according to the Kali Yuga, the precession of the equinox, and every age it's 2160 years. It's just over and over. A new age starts every 2000 years, just like you're saying. And like the government, they know this. They've studied this. The highest levels, they know that through these cycles, the people will rise, and the consciousness cycles. You mentioned about how the sun went from yellow to white. I actually had a question written down I wanted to ask you about that. So you talking about that really allows me to segue into this question. So it's basically, you talk about how the sun is changing consciousness over the last 20 years and is the reason for the Great Awakening. That's happening all around the planet, and we all see it. I've never seen so many countries rise against their governments in the millions. I've never seen so many resignations of entire governments, G20 countries, full resignations around the world. You can see all that at resignations.info. Now, since consciousness is governed by light and the color of light can change the level of consciousness of an individual, what role do you think the color white plays in this, as the sun is obviously now shifted from yellow to now white? Because we all remember the yellow sun. When we were children, we all used to paint the sun yellow. Now kids are painting the sun white. There's been a whole change, just kind of like the chemtrails. The world we're from, Jay, we didn't have the chemtrails. Those chemtrails just came out of nowhere, and now they put it in everything, including animations. But getting back to this question, what role do you think the color white plays into this, as the sun is obviously now changed? Now, is this the reflection of the prophesied 1,000 years of light coming and all the cultures of the world talking about this?
Well, I think that the sun changing, we change because the pineal gland within our brain reacts to the light. And this is one of the reasons why the people that built cathedrals put stained glass windows in there, because when they would do their meditations through red or blue, it would change the way that their pineal gland would react. And so definitely there's a change in the way that we're reacting. And again, for people that are like my age, I can tell you right now that the very language that people use has completely altered rapidly. And I'd like to think that Gaia had something to do with that. I don't know, but I can tell you that regular people are using terms that only spiritual people used to use. And it's changing rapidly, and we're becoming more familiar with the unfamiliar and talking about it in a more open way. Whereas before it was almost sort of like, I don't know, being gay or something. You couldn't talk about it. Now we can. And I like to think that, Gaia's main role was it gave us permission to talk about these weird subjects. If it did accomplish nothing else, it did accomplish that. And so, yeah, the sun has changed, and now we have changed. And we are going to um, we are going to go through a mass consciousness, a mass awakening, which they are very much aware of and are doing their uttermost to stop it. And that's what the chemtrails are. That's what these things are. That's what all of these things are, is to stop us from waking up and realizing who the hell is in charge and who the hell is giving me orders and who the hell told you that you could give me orders. Because I don't remember any of that being voted on. And I think that's where we're going. And little things that are going on indicate that there's a big sea change. That guy, he wrote the song Richmond, North of Richmond. Like got a beard and sings.
Yeah,
And
his song went viral about the government.
yeah, like 800 million views or something on the song. And he was offered $8 million from the top country Western record label. And he told him, go, pound sand. And I'm not doing it. I just got my trailer fixed up. I'm not interested in your money. And if they can't control us via the money, which means they're starting to lose control of everything, then that's it. And I think that we're at that point. We're at the point now where there's a whole group of people that don't give a crap anymore, are just saying everything. A lot of them are my friends. I'm one of them. I don't care anymore. So I'm just saying it. I don't know how much time we have left. I don't know how much freedom we have left on YouTube and on these other platforms. I don't know how much time is left. So it's like, okay, well then let's just say everything. Let's just get it all out right now, if that's the way it is. And that will cause the Dvara Yuga to happen, because the more and more people that stand up and say, nope, that's it, I'm just telling you the way it is, then more people will become emboldened, more courageous, more people will go forward. And you can see that they're losing control and they know it. And so that's it.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts about what's happening in like the school systems though, with all the indoctrination of gender confusion, and just how in some countries, if you were to flee what the narrative is, even a mother would be considered kidnapping her own child because the government has this thing about owning us. How far do you think that's going to go? Because it looks like they're trying to modify the human into like a EBE type being that loses its connection with soul. How far do you think that might go? And do you see us establishing ways to reverse it before it gets too far?
I think they're going to try that. But I don't think, listen, they're in a race right now, because every day everybody gets a little bit more awakened. And so they're in a race to dampen it down. But it's not working. It's the toothpaste, in the tube, you can't get it back in. And so they're in a mad rush. And in that mad rush, they're making mistakes. And when they make those mistakes, then everything they're doing becomes more and more obvious. And so we're at that stage now where they're like, it's like the Three Stooges, or the Marx Brothers. I mean, you're watching them and they can't even help themselves. They just blurt out the truth and they just keep doing it. And so they're going to try to, and they will succeed to a limited degree in turning us into cyborgs of one kind or another, but it's not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because there's a lot of reasons why it's not going to work. I was talking to a neurophysicist who's also a medical doctor, and he told me that if you put a chip in your brain is going to create a callus around your chip, and eventually the chip is going to give out and not work, because the brain is just going to reject it. So we're at this, I don't know if any of this is going to work. It's like they're feeding us one fantasy after another, But when you actually drill down into their supposed fantasy, you realize it can't work. Like EVs, electric vehicles, they can't work. They can't work. There's not enough lithium. There's not enough battery power. There's not enough electricity to run it all. It can't work, but they keep selling it to us. And anyone who is highly intelligent will be like, well, that's not going to work. And the thing is that the thing that we have to understand is that there is a group of people, I got to be really careful here. There is a group of people among us who understand the dark arts very well. And one of those things that they understand very well is how to use human beings to give themselves a longer life. And that is the number one goal of this small group of people, is to live a long time, like 200, 300, 400, 500 years or whatever. And some of them may actually still may be that old. And so we have to come to grips with the fact that we're being used by this group in a very big way to help them live longer at our own demise. And
you can freely speak about these. We're not posting this on YouTube, so you don't have to worry about censoring yourself. So if you want to, it sounds like you're talking about the WEF.
Yeah, they're part of it. I don't think they're the ones in charge. I think the people in charge are probably, well, they're not people, they're the Elohim. That they're the group of whatever they are. Some people think they're space aliens. Some people think they come from Earth, that they're humans. I don't know.
Would you refer to them as the Anunnaki?
Oh, they're the Anunnaki. Yeah, that's a Sumerian version
Awesome.
of the Elohim. There's many names for them. Every culture has their group that they call them. India has theirs. The Greeks had the gods. The Central Americans had theirs. The South Americans had theirs. They all have their interactions with this group of people or beings who appear to be running us. And they appear to have like they have rankings in their group. They're very close to the way that we run our world. They run their world. We probably learned how to run our world from them. And so they have the same kind of legal system that we have. They have different soldiers. So the Archangel Michaels are the warrior caste of the Elohim, whereas the Archangel Gabriels are the propaganda caste. So Archangel Gabriel visited Mary 9 months before she gave birth to Jesus. Archangel Gabriel visited Muhammad 23 times and dictated the Quran to him. Archangel Gabriel dressed up as Moroni and gave the golden plates to Joseph Smith. Over and over, we see this manipulation. Akhenaten was walking down the Nile one day and a silver ship landed, and the beings inside told him to start a new religion and to kill all the people that were in the old religion. And so Akhenaten began killing all the Setians and starting his new sun worship religion. And over, we see this manipulation going on. And and we're going to have to free ourselves from this manipulation if we want to be free as a species. And so right now, we're beginning to understand that we've been under the yoke of these beings, and now it's time for us to become free. And as we leave the Kali Yuga, I believe they will no longer have any power over us. And that will be the time that we are liberated, and that's now. We're starting to liberate ourselves right now. And the sun going white is the sign that we're now moving into that next phase.
A little hungover, but we're moving there. Yeah, for sure.
We're hungover. I mean, we are. We all have PTSD. I mean, it was horrifying. what happened. You know, this is what, like, look what's going on in Israel. They're killing thousands of civilians. I know I'm not going to get into it, uh, but it is horrifying. And we all need to condemn that kind of stuff, because that's
They
calling.
can't go nowhere. They're literally stuck in a 360-degree basic fence that you can't escape. It's basically like a large concentration camp. And if you defend yourself, you die. If you don't accept orders, you die. If you cross any line, you die. If you're a child and you throw a rock at a soldier, you die. Like, that is hardcore. That violates so many rules of engagement and so many international laws. I don't see how it's even happening.
I agree. It's outrageous. And and the fact is that, that was their land. I mean, I'm sorry, but it was. And it was a UN decree that just gave that land over to the European Jews. But, was that legit? Was that really?
Was that 1947 when the UN did that?
Yeah, 1948.
Yeah, did you know the United States was the only co-sponsor out of all the other delegates and countries? We are the only one who co-sponsored to create Israel. And what people don't understand is when the Anunnaki came down and they installed their kingship, that's everything. That's Atlantis. That's the pharaohs. That's the hybrids. That's the Khazarian mafia, Rothschild, Rockefeller connection. Like, all of it is connected. They own the Council on Foreign Relations, which basically controls the World Economic Forum, and Klaus Schwab. They're all part of the same secret societies, the same groups. And like, it's like one ring to rule them all. And they basically claim they are direct descendants of the Anunnaki. And in their biographies, the Rothschild and Rockefeller biographies, they say they are from Egypt and from the line of the Anunnaki. And like, when we bring up the Anunnaki, people just scoff and laugh. But I'm like, listen, man, have you ever read the Bible? That's the Anunnaki. That's the story about the worst of the brothers fighting his less evil brother, And like we had talked about at your lecture at Stairway to the Stars, and I had mentioned when you were mentioning Gabriel coming in, I basically said that Yahweh had started all these, Enlil had started all these religions, and he sent his main propagandist, Gabriel. And when he told me that was the propaganda position, it freaking blew my mind. And then I mentioned Joseph Smith. And tying that all together, I had said that he found a way to create perpetual war to control the masses, because if you create the major religion and the antithesis to that major religion, you are in internal struggle. And then you're basically fighting over the same God, calling them different names. People don't understand that Enki was a single name. Before he was Enki, he was Ea. And just if we studied history, you can think he was known as Apsu after he vanquished Apsu. He was known as Nudimmud, Samael. He was known as Poseidon. That was his Atlantean name, Poseidon. They called him in Greek. Neptune, Oans, Dagon, Zoroaster, Thothmi, the Dweller. They talk about in the Emerald Tablets. Oannes and Babylonian. Yeah. Like, it's a handful of gods, a lot of Anunnaki, and they basically started all these world religions, kind of like Shiva would be Enki, or I'm sorry, Enlil.
Yeah.
Enlil. Yeah, so like they just changed colors of the skin. They took the beards off. And you're right, the ranks are usually denoted in the amount of horns on the Anunnaki. It depends if they're carrying the pell. A lot of people, they have this dispute about what this thing is in the hands.
The handbag.
If you really study these Sumerian tablets, you realize they talk about it, and it's not actually a handbag. It is a bucket of water, and it shows you that is an emissary of Enki, because that eternal water was a symbol of power. It wasn't just regular water. That tells you that I am the highest authority of Enki. I represent the clan of Enki. You'll never see Enlil carrying these buckets of water ever. Enlil does not carry them. Sometimes I did see Marduk carrying him, so that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, so what was it, alchemical water?
Yeah, basically it was
Gold water.
It's alive.
Starfire?
Yeah, it's like the mana.
The
It's
Starfire.
gold.
The
It's
Starfire.
gold juice. It's really gold juice. That's what it is. The Anunnaki came here because there's so much gold here. And they dug mines in Zimbabwe and South Africa and mined it for 250,000 years. And that's why we were invented, so we could be good miners. And the thing is, and I'm not going to get too far into this because it's too hot, but what they've done is over the last 40 years, they've contaminated the talk about different races and different racial attributions. So we can't talk about it anymore. But it's pretty obvious to me that each race was designed by the Elohim Anunnaki for different purposes. I'm sorry, and I can't really talk about it because I'll get charged with all sorts of things I don't want to get charged with. But when you actually do the mitochondria DNA on white people, you find that the first white person, the first blonde-haired, blue-eyed person appeared 8,000 years ago. You also know that the Anunnaki and the Elohim are both described as having white skin, blonde and red hair, blue eyes, right? I mean, they do. That's how they're described.
And big long beards and curly hair.
Big, long, and curly hair. Exactly. So you have to, so then we'll take that and put it over here. And then you go into the Torah or the Old Testament, and it says that the Elohim came down to earth and they found that the women were fair. That's the line. They found that the women were fair, F-A-I-R, fair, right? Well, fair means blonde-haired and blue-eyed. That's what it means.
Which typically means Lyran descent, typically too. Before they split with the Nibiru Wars and all the atomic war, before they did the Sirius A and Sirius B and the Pleiades, before all that stuff, all Lyran.
Yes.
That was Hitler's obsession too. That's why him and the Vril Damen, they were looking for all the blonde-haired blue eyes. They have the original programming in order to be programmed. That's why they called it the Aryan race, the original race that was created, the first physical beings that was ever created in this part of the universe before the Drago came and caused the reason why we're in all these planets all over the cosmos. We are all refugees from this freaking war, and the Anunnaki is only part of that story, but they are a huge contributor in that story, and that's why, again, we're Homo sapiens sapiens.
Yeah, and you're right. And the thing is that I have a private group of probably you would heard of most of the people in my private group, and we meet privately on the internet because we can't really talk about this stuff in public because obviously they've contaminated the language, so we can't even talk about it without being called all sorts of names. So so the question then becomes, what do we do about it? What do we do if they really truly can live 2,000 or 3,000 years, and then they must be way ahead of us in every way? Is it possible to shed the chains of the slavery? And I don't know. It's really the question we have to ask ourselves.
Laura, did you want to follow up?
Well, we have to repair just the DNA template. And when we see the gender reversal technologies and the planetary grid network being manipulated by Nephilim reversal grid, not just all the different technologies that have been used that really stream through devices and stream through media and Hollywood and, all these different, platforms, Red Cube technology, the shielded cloned imposters that are totally looking to, create this inversion that, as Jay's talking about, is being just wiped clean with consciousness, with those of us that are willing to do the inner work and willing to do what it takes to switch on these dormant aspects. So Jay, talk to us about
what if it was like this? What if they created white people to be some kind of manager. And then they decided at some point that we had gotten too far along and that we needed to be eliminated. And that's actually what's going on right now, is that we got too close to the ring and now we have to be denied. And which is fine, I guess. I don't really care, but I just, there's definitely a Anunnaki Elohim agenda going on, which is in full tilt, boogie. And we have to look at that agenda and see where we're going with it, because it looks to me like, well, I mean, all of the jabs were in Europe, America, Canada, and Asia. Africa didn't get any. They did refuse to take it. So you got to start thinking what's going on here. Are certain groups being eliminated because they may be too dangerous to the rulers, the powers that be? Or are the powers that be worried that they're going to go out of power now that we're leaving the Kali Yuga? I think all of these things could be true. I mean, I really do.
Yeah, that also ties in when you're mentioning like the white races, like when Thoth left, when he left Egypt after he fought his brother Marduk, he went to South America to establish the South American stuff. And when he arrived, the Mayans described him as a tall white with a beard and blue eyes. So
Yeah.
like when these beings came, that was pretty shocking for the native beings, because at the time, way before the Anunnaki, we had the Lemurians.
Yeah.
As part of like refugee stuff, and they were the basically they were part of the beings that they engineered. They were part of them, but they were a little bit older than the Atlanteans, because when we had interviewed Sarah Breskman Cosme a couple episodes ago, and she does a lot of she's a level 3 QHHT teacher, and she does a lot of hypnosis, past life regression.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out that when the Anunnaki came, even though they were master geneticists, there was a disease there they couldn't conquer. And basically, the Lemurians had this red crystal that produced these codes, these vibrations, where they couldn't actually succumb to this disease. And that's why a lot of these wars happened. But like to see this play out and how all the ancient stories tie into the Anunnaki, like Georgios Tsoukalos has the meme that says aliens. I always say Anunnaki, because no matter what story you read, their story's the oldest. Sumerian tablets, like there is nothing else that predated it other than like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, but it's still the Anunnaki story.
But the Emerald Tablets got
Stolen by Thoth.
We gotta
Like
go
no
back
one.
to the Dora Torah, the Cloister Dora Torah text before the Anunnaki Nibirians gutted it, and all the biblical scriptures and pretty much everything and the true teachings of the Essenes.
Yep.
Yeah, Thoth notoriously stole the Emerald Covenant, and he brought it to the earth, and they called it the Emerald Tablets. And allegedly, they housed the Emerald Tablets maybe in the Ark of the Covenant. It was also a symbol of the Anunnaki authority, because if you possess those tablets, that was God's authority, the authority of El.
Do you feel that that's part of the Freemasons that have gone the inverted way versus the true Masons and the true Templars?
Yeah, we don't know exactly when, but it looks like around 1700. The Masons got corrupted somehow, and they broke it into two branches. One branch went underground. They knew most of the alchemical secrets, and the other branch, is the one we're dealing with today. And they're mostly just organized crime, really. Organized crime for the Elohim. Because you have to understand, so one of the big things that, people involved in all of this, that they talk about those who are lost in deep thought, they think about, well, now wait a minute, how could, let's pick a group and say that they're running the world. Group X is running the world, right? Group X is a group of people are united by maybe a religion, maybe by family or whatever, and Group X is running the world. Well, we all know that if you're dealing with humans, it's going to break up into fights and disagreements, and eventually everything's going to turn into chaos and fall apart. But it never falls apart if you look at the history of this whole thing. It's like it's on a timeline and it never falls apart. And so it can't be human derived. It has to be non-human. And so I would say that the people who are running, the beings that run our world are not human. And we are here to serve them. And every religion and every culture on earth that I have looked at outside of Buddhism looks and appears to me to be serving that group of beings.
And Taoism.
And Taoism does it. Thank you very much. Yeah, Taoism and Buddhism seem to be free of that influence, but nothing else seems to be free of it. And Christianity was initially a rebellion against Yahweh, which when Constantine took over the church in 300, he again made the covenant back with Yahweh, and the Christians turned from a rebellion against Yahweh, which is what the Gnostics were, to a complete agreement with the Elohim and Yahweh. But the great heresy, of course, of the Gnostics was that they said that Yahweh was a false god, a fake god, and that we shouldn't worship him. And
that's what he said in the Pistis Sophia.
Yeah, that got their asses killed. So, I mean, still to this day, you say that kind of stuff, people get really angry at you.
Yeah, Jesus literally said in the Pistis Sophia that Yahweh is not my father. He is not God. He is a flesh and blood being that subjugated humanity and took over us. And he was here to awaken humanity that he was not God.
That's right. And that's why Jesus was crucified, for those exact words. It wasn't anything else. It might have been throwing the bankers out of the temple, which happened, a week or so before he was crucified. That might have been the catalyst for it, but he was literally preaching a rebellion against Yahweh right in the middle of Yahweh's main home. So he was like right in the middle of the beast, preaching this. And of course, this has all been lost. The Christians don't agree with any of this anymore. And if you tell this to Christians, they get mad at you. They don't want to know about it. And they don't realize that actually they are part of a religion that was incredibly insightful in that it was recognized the false gods that were ruling over us.
One thing I like to ask Christians that don't believe in any of this, I'll ask them if they've ever read the Sumerian tablets or if they ever heard of them. And then if they haven't, I ask them to go read the Atrahasis, which is the original story of Noah. And then through all the archaeological records, the name Noah was never found one time. He was known as the Sudra, he was known as Atrahasis, and conveniently, he was the son of Enki. And Noah was depicted as he was a giant.
Pale.
Blonde hair, blue eyes. And if you read the Sumerian tablets, they didn't really build a wooden boat. That's not what the Sumerian tablets say. But if you go back to the Enuma Elish, that's the entire Genesis story. The Sumerian tablets predate the Bible by thousands and thousands of years. And the Bible is only a summary form of Genesis from the Enuma Elish, which is the seven tablets of creation. It's the entire creation story. When God said, let's make man in our image, just like they mistranslated Elohim. It was actually three beings talking. It was Enki and Lil and their sister Ninhursag, also known as Ninmah. She was the master geneticist. So was Enki, but Ninmah was like she was like the rock star. She was She was like the main medical officer. She was like the CFO, the CEO of the medical officers. And through that nuclear war on Nibiru and all the other stuff, like it made their men sterile. So they had to find a way in order to master genetics in order to not die. So we talk about these bloodlines, we talk about the Rothschilds controlling bloodlines. Yes, they've had the secret to genetic editing since before we were even edited by the Anunnaki. And our chromosome number 2 was snipped
Aryan Egypt invasion.
all that. So like we're way more powerful than we think we are. And again, we can just see it around the world. They are afraid of us. When Enlil came back from Nibiru and he's seen us building the Tower of Babel, he freaking freaked out because he saw for the first time that humans are more powerful than Anunnaki, because you know how long it took them to master megalithic building through the use of lasers and vibrational technologies. They were using power tools, man. Like the pyramids, it pulled in electricity and they powered entire cities from this electrical discharge that the planet put out from its own torus. Like our planet is an anode and a cathode, unlimited energy everywhere, every planet. Even the space right here has more energy in it than a grain of sand can power the entire damn universe. And they just lied to us, man.
Yeah, and because what they did was when they created us, they put a governor on our brain, so we can't use the full capacity of what we've been given, and so now they don't want to give us anything. They don't want to give us free energy. They don't want to give us anything because they think that we can't handle it because they screwed up on their genetics when they did us, and so now they're having to decide what they're going to do with us. Are they going to advance us so that we can move on to the next phase, or are they going to get rid of us? And I think there's an argument among them right now about getting rid of us. But there is another thing that could be going on. I've only said this one other time, but I heard this from various sources that are really good sources, all through the ordeal of 2020 and 2021, right? With the jab and the sickness and all of that. And what I kept hearing from these very good sources, I mean, I would pick up something here, then I would pick up something there, and I'd pick up something there. And on their own, each one of these didn't really mean anything. But when I took the aggregate together from what I was hearing that the whole entire COVID and the shot was an attempt to cultivate a certain kind of characteristic within the human species. And that characteristic would be an ability to detect bullshit, an ability to detect that you're being had. And it's a certain kind of quality, an intellectual quality. And those people who rejected this, right, they are going to live, and everybody else is not going to live. And that's a sad fact of the matter. I have a nephew, he's 26. He just had his left testicle removed because it was cancerous. He's had all 4 shots and boosters. His younger sister has myocarditis. Again, she had everything. I don't want to say anything about it to anybody, so I don't say anything, which puts me in this weird position where I can't really tell them what's going on, yet it's clear that we're going to be facing massive deaths here of the people who believed what they were told.
Do you feel that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you feel there'll be some sort of major breakthrough with how these things can be reversed or healed?
No, I don't. I think that, no, I don't. I think that it was an evil plan by the Elohim to thin the herd, and there's hasn't even, why aren't we having like a mass conference to do a postmortem on all this and where we screwed up and where we didn't and all of that? But we're not. We're just going on. The people that did it to us are just going on. We're not holding them responsible for anything like Fauci or any of them. And that tells me that this is coming from the top. And when I say the top, I don't mean some human group. I mean the Elohim Anunnaki. It's coming from them. And they don't want a large group of us around questioning what they're doing. And I think they do this every time human beings begin to realize that they are slaves. They begin to create a crisis, which gets rid of a lot of people. I think that's what they're doing.
How can just empathic people like process, I mean, or just anybody, any of us that understand what's going on? I mean, are we just going to be witness to seeing our loved ones and friends that didn't quite get the memo in time or couldn't process it or couldn't awaken? We're just going to are we on a timeline to just watch them deteriorate and just have to just cope with that as we move on to the new world? I mean, this is just the harshest assault, man.
Oh, it really is. It's so heartbreaking. I can't even begin to tell you. My little small town, I have maybe 1,400 people total in this huge area that I live in. And every time I go to the town to go shopping, there's another poster with another picture of another person who just died. And that never happened 2 or 3 years ago. Now it's happening every week. And it's happening all around me. I know a lot of people that have died in the last couple of years, and some were shocking. I was just on the phone with someone a couple months ago, having a really good conversation with them, and then a week later they died. And then I asked his wife, I said, did he get it? And she said, what? I said, you know this? And she's like, oh yeah, he believed in all of that. And I was like, there you go. And he was a super genius, which means that this is not intelligence, that you can be really highly intelligent and still be fooled. So if they are looking for a characteristic that they want to cultivate, it isn't intelligence, because I know a lot of high IQ people that did it. So it isn't intelligence, it's the ability to detect bullshit. I think that's what it is. And that is you can't test for that. How do you test for this, right? But this ordeal that we went through definitely separated those who can detect BS and those who can't.
That's really the bifurcation of that.
Yeah.
The bullshit meter.
Yeah, and right now at sperm banks, the non-vax sperm is getting like 10 times more price than the vax sperm, because even the women don't want it. So we're moving to that position. But it is amazing that we just went through this and we're just like all kind of nonplussed by it. So we're clearly, someone tried to commit genocide on us, and we're like, oh, okay, well, whatever. What's the game tonight?
Been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. Like what? So I don't know. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
And you mentioned about how we've got to censor ourselves when we say the word jab, or we got to use sign language for people. Like we've got to like, hey man, that means that. So right now I feel we're in the age of Reichstag 2.0. And every time where people start to come to power, this is like, instead of burning books, it's burning digital ones and zeros. So they're removing us from existence. And earlier we were talking about how they created all this separation, and how it goes back to the Sumerian tablets and it goes back to other star systems, because it's the same blueprint for everything. And while you were talking, I drew this real quick. I know you can't see this, but it starts with the Anunnaki. They develop religion. They create the antithesis of all religion, which then they break it down further into groups. Then that groups breaks down into languages, separating people even more. From languages, it goes from groups into colors. From colors, it goes into classes. But I think the more they separate us, the more it goes against what we signed up on this planet and we incarnated for in advance. Like what we found out with past life regression, we chose a lot of this stuff to happen. We chose to be here for this moment when this mass awakening happens, when it happens. A lot of people unfortunately signed up to get the jab. They signed up to experience the apocalypse and to drown in some epic flood or some major event. But like, they don't know nothing about timelines at that point, because once you realize that there's all these timelines happening simultaneously, because nothing is solid. You were talking about how different technologies can hit our pineal gland. Yes, our entire body is 99.9% empty space. So like you shining a laser at our pineal gland or a frequency, yes, it can affect us. Psychotronic weapons can affect us that way because we only are particles. But part of what I'm saying after they break everything down, I think the more you separate us from our original plan of our incarnations and what we signed up to do, the more the universe pushes back to an anomaly. And you see this through the Kali Yuga and all the cycles, all the tyrannical dictators. All this is predestined. They lose every single time. The Anunnaki lose every single time, no matter what they do, no matter what crimes they cover up, no matter what technology they remove off the planet to make sure we don't get it for the future, it'll keep popping up over and over and over. It's like no matter what they do, they can't defeat us. We're bigger.
Yeah, and there's also I think there's a group of highly advanced human beings that are assisting us in all of this. And so they're releasing things which confound the Anunnaki. So the Anunnaki think they got something all sealed up, then all of a sudden something weird happens and it all starts falling apart again. And I think that this is part of this, you got to go through hell to understand what heaven's like. And I think that's what we're doing. We're going through hell, and that on the other end of this, we're going to be free of the Anunnaki finally for the first time in a few thousand years. And then it's up to us to determine what we want to be. And that's why they've been doing so much mind control on us, so that we cannot come up with the ideas that are needed to happen in order for us to free ourselves from the prison that we're in. So it's a multifaceted thing. Unfortunately for them, they're not going to be able to stop what's about to happen, because it's gaining ground now to a point now where everybody kind of smells that there's something wrong.
Yeah, and I'm noticing a lot of MK Ultra programming is breaking down all over the world. It's like no matter what they do, it's just like this flash of consciousness that's coming, because I believe like they're trying to block the sun because the sun is sending us photons. Photons tell plants how to grow. It's all the genetic information. That's basically the ones and zeros of the matrix being sent to this hologram. And you're attempting to block it, which then affects DNA on every level, molecules on every level. So
That's right. That's why they tell you not to go out in the sun, by the way.
yeah, remember when a doctor used to say, hey, if you want to get rid of your disease, get exercise, go outside in the sun, drink water, and eat healthy. Now doctors do not say that. And that's because of Rockefeller medicine, AKA Anunnaki medicine. That's right. Everything that's supposed to heal us is all inversion. It's the law of inversion. Today's the law of inversion. You say any subject you mention, it's the law of inversion. They pin this person against this person. Male are identifying as females and vice versa. It's the law of inversion. You have to divert all energy. Medicine is good. That's what they say, but technically medicine is bad. It's pharmaceuticals. They got rid of natural homeopathic medicine, and they stigmatize it and say, that's not FDA approved. You cannot say you can cure diseases. We're going to throw you in prison for saying that a plant can do that. But hey, we can take methamphetamine, add one molecule change to it, and now we can call it Adderall and put your kid on legal methamphetamine. Come on, man. Law of inversion.
Yeah, it's true. But I'll tell you what, there's also, I've noticed that in the medical community 20 years ago, if a doctor found out you were using alternative medicines and things to help yourself, they would get really angry at you. Now they don't get angry at you, but they kind of they hint to you things that they used to not. So I was at the doctor 5 months ago or something, and I had something, and oh well, we could give you this prescription. So I don't take prescription drugs, so I'm not doing that, right? And I could see that put the doctor in a quandary. He didn't know what to do. And then he said, well, if you get on the internet, and you kind of look this thing up, you might find something that you could take, right? I thought, wow, what a change that is, because 20 years ago, that would never have happened. So, I did that. I went home and I got on the internet. I typed in what I had and found like 16 different alternative, herbs and stuff. And I bought them and I took them and I reversed everything. So he was kind of hinting at me to go do this without actually telling me to do it, which is a big sea change. So I think that they can try to outlaw all that stuff, but it's not going to work. I mean, I'm growing it in my garden, so you can outlaw it all you want. I still got 10 beds full of alternative herbs and things, and you're not going to stop me. And I'll give cuttings to all my friends, and they'll have them. So it's not going to stop.
This is Mother Earth. They're trying to, it's just
Exactly.
it's like, whoa, fact checkers on Mother Earth. Okay.
Yeah.
And Jay, I think you're the fact-checking world record holder, man. Your stuff has been fact-checked so much, it is freaking insane. Like, I don't even check the CY part anymore. Like, I think we're to that point where we don't even want to check the part that warns us what we're clicking on, because it's like, if they put a warning on it through the law of inversion, that means there's next level information and truth in it. So click on it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and God also made a huge mistake in the body that you were born with. You better change that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I call it the Facebook principle. If Facebook censors you, then that's exactly what you want to read. And so, I just go through Facebook and put stuff up. And if they cancel it, oh, that's exactly what must be important. And so they're caught in that dilemma where they can't get out of it. And they know it. I mean, they know that they've been wrong in the last few years. So, I mean, don't you kind of feel vindicated? I mean, I do.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like, yes, I'm sorry that my loved ones that didn't hear, our message, did what they did, and now they're going to be leaving the planet. And I'm sorry for that. I'm going to miss them a lot. But I mean, I still feel vindicated that I was smart enough to know that this was not the right thing. And I think that we should pat ourselves on the back and say good job, because I mean, we were smart enough to figure that out.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Gosh, well, let's switch gears a little bit. The Kubrick stuff and some of the interesting movies and the predictive programming lately. And Drago, you had some really good questions for him about the Kubrick stuff, right?
I love that little documentary you made. Was it like 2012 you put that out?
Which one?
The Kubrick Odyssey?
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, man. When you broke it down into symbolism, it really got me thinking. And like, I was one of the guys that was originally turned off by the idea of like them faking the idea of the moon landing, because I thought it segued into saying that they didn't actually go anywhere during these Apollo missions. So when I started seeing all this evidence that you were starting to put out and stuff, even in your documentary, I had to watch it 2 or 3 times. And it's really interesting stuff. It's pretty obvious that you seen the girders when you remove the contrast and all that darkness. Like, that's weird. You know what I'm saying? And like,
yep.
It's that entire thing sparked an entire investigation from so many truthers, so many famous people. And then just like you were saying how it started, Richard C. Hoagland, he was saying that these were like crystal buildings, and that was his proof, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just like, holy crap, man. There's just so much information. There's so much symbolism in that movie. It's insane, man. And now that I watch it again, it's just like, oh my God, it's obvious that this was his desperate attempt to take a Stephen King novel and to subtly change it and tell his story. And only the people who paid attention would see the symbolism everywhere.
Yeah, that actually my next film, I just put out my last film, JFK-X, Solving the Crime of the Century, which is a big hit, by the way. But my next film is going to be about Stanley Kubrick and the MK Ultra programs and how he was part of that.
Clockwork Orange stuff.
Yeah, Clockwork Orange is going to be a
One
big
thing
part of
you don't know about me, we were mentioning how programming's breaking and MK Ultra and stuff. Unfortunately, I'm a product of MK Ultra. They got me as a child, and I went through that entire program, and I went through the worst of the worst. And you can say that that makes me special because what they did to me was insane. So to see so much stuff happen and to hear Monarch being mentioned, like they even mentioned in the new Godzilla movie, they're actually starting to talk about Monarch now. And they even named the new Godzilla movie Monarch. It's just like, wow, they're talking about special access programs and the stuff that's really going on. And it's just like, I think we've come to that forefront where they can't hide this information anymore. And this is why it's all coming to the surface more overtly instead of hidden, like more occult like, where it's just hidden from the public. And now they're putting it in everything. They're teaching kids the Stranger Things show. They're talking about MK Ultra from the show and how you traumatize people to the point where it activates some kind of ability. And they proved this in Joseph Mengele proved this. He was obsessed with creating these abilities in these children. And like, we can go all kinds of rabbit holes down the MK Ultra subject, but like,
well, I mean, what they
it's
did
interesting
was
to,
the MK Ultra stuff, of course, came when the Germans, it came in Project Paperclip. They brought it over from Germany, but what I'm going to put in my next film is that MK Ultra went public in the late 1960s. That Charlie Manson was part of it. What was the MK Ultra program? You bomb them with acid, right? And then you feed them all sorts of new age jargon, and then you're controlling them. That's how you control them. That's what Charlie Manson did to his girls.
and they got that through Project MK Naomi. That's where they got all their drug stuff with their, I think 126 sub programs MK Ultra was running. And when they were outed in the 70s, it went even more underground. And you're going to notice the Stranger Things show starts 1 year after they were shut down in Congress, and they moved to the state that they actually went to in the show. Hawkins, they went to Indiana. That's where they actually reemerged into that dumb. And it's just like it's interesting to tell these stories because it's like I can now have a bridge to connect to somebody that doesn't understand any of these concepts, but almost everyone has watched that show. So now it's more tangible.
Yeah, and that's done on purpose too, because they want us to now understand what was going on for some reason. And I'm going to my next film is going to really be a mind blower because it's going to show you how the entire 1960s was an MK Ultra program. And all the people that are boomers my age are not going to be very happy to find out that all of their rock stars and
like
movie stars, and they were all part of an MK Ultra program that was operated out of a Laurel Canyon in Los Angeles, or it was a special film studio there where it was all secret, owned by the Air Force and the CIA, and the Air Force was involved in all the MK Ultra operations, and the movies and everything that came out of that era was designed to turn an entire generation into MK Ultra victims. which is what is going on right now. And that's
And
why, go ahead.
in Stanley, in The Shining, he actually uses MK Ultra references. He actually showed the labyrinth and what happened in the labyrinth. The labyrinth is the program inside the mind that you get trapped in when you're programmed. It shows in the movie literally the labyrinth. So when he showed that labyrinth, I was just like, wow.
That's right. And that's why he changed it to a labyrinth. In the book, it wasn't a labyrinth. And also when Danny first sees the two twins in the pool room, there's a sign on the wall that says Monarch right there. And so the first time that Danny gets traumatized,
I didn't even see that.
In the hotel, the very first time that he's traumatized, there's a poster on the wall that says Monarch, right? It's like,
wow.
Okay. And where did Danny get his psychic abilities from? Oh, he was abused by his dad. Remember? He broke his arm. Remember at the beginning of the movie? Wendy says, oh, he got angry at him. Oh, so Danny is an abused child by his father. And that's where his psychic abilities come from, right? And Kubrick's telling you all of this. And it's incredible. And when Wendy, who is not a victim of MK Ultra programming like Jack and Danny are, so she's not falling for it. But by the end of the movie, what happens to Wendy? She's being beset by ghouls and ghosts and phantoms and all the MK Ultra stuff to turn her into a trauma victim, right? And so the whole movie is about how you turn people into trauma victims.
And he got caught in his loop when he was writing his novel to the end. It said, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And you had pointed out that the word all was actually Apollo 11 and the two L's were actually ones.
That's right.
That was another way he would show you that he was part of he filmed the Apollo 11 landing. And
right.
And then also like Danny wore the Apollo 11 sweater right on the little launch pad in the carpet. And it showed that symbolism of the rocket taking off. And like, there was so much in that movie, like the Tang on the shelf, the reference to Ray, which is the worship of the sun gods.
Yep.
Right there. I think it was, you said the box, it was 39,000 on the box and they launched off of launch pad 39.
Launch pad 39. Yeah. So everything over and over in there. And also about 5 years ago or 4 years ago, a British writer came out with a whole book about the moon and all of that. And he said that he was at a lecture in England, and in the lecture, he was talking about the how they faked the Apollo moon landings and everything. And one of the person in the audience raised their hand and said, "Hey, I was at the blimp hangar in north of London in 1968, and I met Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin there." And he said they had the whole blimp hangar was a whole Apollo set, and they were practicing their moon landing in the blimp hangar. And I thought, what? And then when I read it, and of course I knew where Stanley lived, and I typed in where the blimp hangar was, it was 40 minutes away from Stanley's house. So Stanley could get there in 40 minutes, right? So I finally found the place, because I never could find a big enough set in England for Stanley to do the moon landing. But now, and by the way, that blimp hangar is now used in movies. That's all it is. It's not a blimp hangar anymore. It's a gigantic movie set. They filmed all three Batman there by Christopher Nolan, right? They built Gotham inside this hangar, right? All of Gotham was built. And they still use it to this day. And
that room 217?
Yeah, room 217, 237.
237, yeah, the Stephen King reference, 217.
Right, which is how many miles it is to get to the moon, 237,000 miles. And that's why Kubrick renamed the room that. And, but, you know, faking the moon landings was also an MK Ultra operation, right? It was a mind control operation to make us think that we had gone to the moon with rockets, which is clearly impossible. So, And that's not saying they didn't go to the moon. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that what they showed us was fake. And so in that vein, let's go to my newest film, which is up on Amazon right now, JFKX, Solving the Crime of the Century. So what we did, Ryder Lee and I, we made this film. What we did was we asked ourselves, what would happen if we put the famous Zapruder film of the JFK assassination through that same kind of software that they're putting old movies through nowadays to get a movie, say, shot in 1915 to look like it was shot yesterday in 4K, you know?
Oh, where'd he go?
It says we're still recording, so let's see if he just relogs on.
Okay. I'm going to pause the recording then.